Okay, here we go. Good Shabbos. So, he doesn't know. Good Shabbos, everyone. Ian, happy birthday. Mazel tov. Mazel tov. Kirta Smolesh, you know Vishamru? B'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasod et ha-Shabbat L'dorotam b'ridolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasod et ha-Shabbat L'dorotam b'ridolam Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, lasod et ha-Shabbat, l'dorotam b'ridolam, ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'ridolam u'vayom hashvi Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash, Shabbat v'yinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasod ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'ridolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Boirei. Amen. L'chaim. Okay. And blessing for Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei. Amen. All right, good to see you all. Good Shabbos. Hopefully everyone has a sheet. I made a lot of them. And a book. We may have ran out of them, who knows, but hopefully you can see a book. If not, if you have a phone, you could just Google Exodus. We have a lot to get to this morning. There's a lot of text and a lot of people. So if you have a comment or a question, maybe consider if it's something that we need or not, and maybe we don't need it. But give it real thought before you offer it. Okay. Not that stopped you in the past. All right. Okay. So we are starting a new book of Torah. Never mind. Oh my. Where's Schwadron? Oh, can you get control of him? So, welcome back. We're starting a new book of Torah, Shemot in Hebrew, Exodus in English. For those of you who've never been to a Torah study before, welcome. We're going to move quick. I didn't change anything. It's the same way we always do it. So it's going to be deep, and it may be a little difficult to follow along. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks. So if you come 3 or 4 times, you'll be hooked for life. But it's a little bit of an acquired taste. You'll see what I mean. Now, today I want to look at what happened to Moses when he leaves Egypt for the first time and then when he comes back. So you probably know the story that Moses grows up in the palace, right? Because he was found by the daughter of Moses when he was sent down the river in a basket. He was found by the daughter whose name was Batya. We did that class a few weeks ago. And then he's raised in the palace. But at one point he says, I'm leaving. And after he leaves, there's another point where he says he's coming back. So why exactly does Moses leave Egypt and go to Midian? What? Joe?
Egypt because he killed an Egyptian.
Killed someone, right. And he's afraid of something after he kills them. Or kills the person. What's he afraid of?
Egyptian's family.
The Egyptian's family? A little more precise? Pharaoh is going to kill him. Why would Pharaoh kill him? It's like his nephew. What does Pharaoh care that someone was killed? I mean, people are killed all the time in Egypt. Ah, okay. Very good. He was killed by a Jew. That's not something that happened that often in Egypt. But even still, Moses was part of his family. But there were these people who were conspiring against Moses, and that Moses was afraid of. And that Moses was afraid to come back to Egypt because of them. So in order to understand that, you have to look at the verses right when he leaves and right when he comes back. If you can do that, then you can learn something very interesting. Now, the Midrash loves minor characters. Whenever there's a minor character, if it says in the Torah, Joseph was walking out and a man met him, but the Torah doesn't say who that man is. The Midrash will have pages on who that man is and why he's important and so forth. So every time there's one of these minor characters, the Midrash goes on and on to explain who they are. And that's when you can really, really learn something. And what I'm going to do today a little bit is use Midrash a lot more than usual. Usually I focus more on what we call the commentators, Rashi, Nachmanides, and so forth. But today I want to look actually, and they quote the Midrash a lot. But today I want to look at some different Midrashim to understand how we build ideas from narrative. In other words, if you just read a book, you might just see a story and you may not draw any sort of moral. It's just, this is something that happened. But that's not how the Torah was meant. The Torah was meant to be a book, and then you're supposed to have to try to put the clues together to figure out what the moral of the story is, and if then you could learn the moral of the story, then it could change your life. That's the point of Torah, and that's what the Midrash is going to do here, and we'll see if we can figure it out. But it's pretty amazing, and extremely, extremely subtle. So I'm guessing that none of you have picked up on this before. Maybe you have. Like if you heard me speak or something somewhere. But probably you haven't. Probably you haven't. All right, so if you look with me now, and we are going to look in the third triennial cycle, but we're going to start a little bit earlier. So if you look with me now in chapter 15 of Exodus, verse 11. If anyone has the page in Plout, you can call it up. Chapter 15, verse 11. I'm sorry, no, it's not it's page 15. Chapter 2, verse 11. It's on, in my book, it's on page 15. Chapter 2. 389. Page 389 if you have Plout. 389. So that's chapter 2, verse 11. Norman, are you up for it or are you passing? Okay. All right, hang on one sec. Chapter 2, verse 11. Okay, here we go.
Sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinfolk and witnessed their toil. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen.
Okay, so that was Moses' entire childhood in the whole Torah. Did you catch it? Do you know what the verse was before you started reading? When he was drawn out of the water as an infant. So we just went from drew him out of the water as an infant in verse 10 to verse 11, he's now grown up and he went out and he saw the burdens of the Egyptians. So Moses' childhood in the Torah, you just saw the whole thing. Completely skipped. Completely skipped. And now he's an older person. By the way, he's about 40 at this point. His first 40 years were just skipped. We don't know anything about him. I wouldn't say we don't know anything about him from a rabbinic point of view, but from the Torah, the whole thing was skipped. So now, after 40 years or so, he goes out and he sees that two Hebrew men are striving. Sorry. He saw I skipped a page. He saw an Egyptian. When he went out and he sees that the Jews are slaves, how does the Torah refer to the people that he sees as slaves? Right. In Hebrew, echav. What's an ach? His brothers. He sees that his brothers are slaves. So you might ask the question, in your first 40 years, did you not notice that the Jews were building blocks every day? Yeah. What have you been doing this whole time? And if you know that they're your brothers, then you knew that did you just find out that everyone else is Jewish? Now, a lot of people, it is hard to believe that Jews would actually be building. You know what Moses said? I knew we had the contract, but I didn't know we were the one. All right. You don't get it? Okay. You're all in commercial real estate. You don't. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, at some point, I think what we just saw was he didn't really identify with them. But at some point, all of a sudden, he did. And once he did, for whatever happened to cause him to now recognize that these are his brothers, he's angry about it. So it doesn't make sense that this is the first time that he saw an Egyptian beating a Jew, but it does make sense that it's the first time that it really bothered him. Okay, and so now he reacts. Okay, now verse 12 is very subtle, and you could easily miss it. So let's go now to verse 12 and look at it closely.
He turned this way and that, and seeing no one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
Okay, now, who's he looking for in verse 12? By the way, if you're a prince of Egypt, are you really worried about due process in court? These things don't exist. You do whatever you want. But he's looking around. Now Rashi says, he saw that there was no man. And what it means is he saw that there was no man destined from this Egyptian to convert to Judaism. And so I don't have to worry about him. That's what he said. By the way, how did he kill him according to the Talmud? He said a magical formula. He said God's name, and all of a sudden the man died. He didn't actually even touch him. He's already having a moment of prophecy here. And the truth is that Moses really didn't kill this guy. God did. And so what Moses really saw is that he has a partner somehow, and that something's wrong. In other words, Moses knew all along that these people were Jewish, but he's only now entering into a partnership with God to do something about it. Because you could see a problem in the world and be really annoyed about it, but not have the ability to do anything about it. What was Moses going to do? Go to Pharaoh and say, I don't want these people to be slaves anymore. What's Pharaoh going to say? That's very nice. Good for you. We're not doing that. I've been trying to wipe these people out for years. All right. We're not doing that. But now all of a sudden, God's on his side. He says, well, maybe there is something I can do. Maybe there is something I can do about this. Right? Okay. By the way, that's what's happening in Iran. You think they liked the regime 10 years ago? They hated them as much then as they do now, but now there's something they can do about it. All right. So now there's something he can do about it. He strikes down the man, he hides him, and he leaves. Now, right after, or actually goes back home. Now let's go to verse 13. And verse 13 picks up on what just happened with regard to, because he kills him and buries him in the sand and goes about his business. At this point, he has no reason to leave Egypt. Right? And if he doesn't leave Egypt, then the rest of the story is not going to happen. Vic? No.
So if you go fast forward on Parashat Mishpatim, one of the rules is that if you kill a man, you hit him, you deserve the death penalty. So Moses knew he deserved the death penalty, even if he...
Well, those laws haven't been given yet, but as a prophet, he would have known them. Very good, very good. Okay, verse 13.
When he went out the next day, he found 2 Hebrews fighting. So he said to the offender, "Why do you strike your fellow?" He retorted, "Who made you chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was frightened and thought, "Then the matter is known." When Pharaoh learned of the matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh. He arrived in the land of Midian and sat down beside a well.
All right, I mean, has it ever occurred to you that that developed pretty quickly? That he said, all right, listen. These two slaves are fighting with each other. Jews, slaves fighting with each other. Who cares what they know? I'm the prince of Egypt. Am I really worried? What are they going to do? Hire a lawyer? Who's going to listen to them? No. Who in the Egyptian court is going to take the word of 2 slaves over the prince of Pharaoh, the prince of Egypt? But Moses is very concerned about these 2 people. Now, the question is, if you look in verse 13, the 2 Hebrew men, Shnei Anashim Ivrim, Nitzim. The Hebrew is Nitzim. They're like fighting with each other. So, who are these 2 people? And what is that word nitzim, which is a strange word? So to figure out now, remember I told you the Midrash loves minor characters. These are minor characters. We don't know who they are. So the Midrash is going to tell us who they are and expect us then to learn something. Okay? So if you go now to the sheet that I brought, we have to figure out who these people are. Okay, so if you look at the second source, where it says Exodus Rabbah 129, which means Midrash on the book of Exodus, it says this: "Indeed, you find that the matter was heard only by means of the Hebrews," meaning the only people who knew about this were Jews. And Moses is afraid, not that the Pharaoh would find out from the Egyptians, but that Pharaoh would find out from the Jews, which is weird. I mean, have you ever thought about it that way? Most people don't. So, it stated, he went out on the second day, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting. And you see that word there? Nitzim. He said to the wicked one, "Why do you strike your counterpart?" And then the Midrash tells us, who are these 2 people? Datan and Aviram. And it called them Nitzim after their end. Pharaoh heard this matter, and so forth. And then Pharaoh heard, because Datan and Aviram arose and informed on them. And because Datan and Aviram, these 2 people, came to tell on him, Moses felt that he was in trouble. Clear so far? You don't need to understand much more than that at this moment. We only want to say so far that the Midrash has now pointed out that these 2 men are called Datan and Aviram. And there's also this other word using to strive called nitzim, that's used to describe them. Now, what would the Midrash then do? The Midrash will then look other places in the Torah and see if there are minor characters that are also described by that same word, nitzim, because it's a very unusual word. And if you found other characters described by that word, then it might give you an indication of who they are. Don't read too much into that yet. Now, trust me when I tell you, Moses does leave, and he goes out, and he meets his wife, and he gets married, and he has kids, and there's the burning bush, and the burning bush tells Moses, through God, to come back. Okay? How do you say burning bush in Hebrew? Sneh. Why sneh? Because that's how you say that's what the word means. But because, where was the burning bush? On Mount Sinai. Sneh, Sinai, same word, right? The burning bush was on Mount Sinai. God said, you're going to be back here someday, I think. Right? Remember, he came back, Mount Sinai, got the Torah. Okay. All right. Okay, so now, if you skip with me to chapter 4, chapter 4, verse 19. Chapter 4, verse 19. If anyone has the page in Plout, if you could. 411. Page 411 in Plout. This is, again, chapter 4, verse 19. Okay. Now, it also said over there a Hebrew word for men. And there are a variety of different words you could use to say men. It could have said Jews. It could have said Hebrews. It could have said Israelites. It could have said slaves. But he used the word men, anashim. You ever heard this word before? Anashim. What's the singular of anashim? Ish. Very good. Okay, so anashim. Keep that word Hebrew in mind, anashim. And now look with me in verse, what did I say? 19. Okay. Ken?
The Lord said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who sought to kill you are dead."
Okay, and that's it. So, God is convincing Moses, you're going to be the savior of the Jewish people. And the one thing that Moses is afraid of going back, where there were these two guys who told on him. Datan and Aviram. And so now, God says in verse 19, go to return to Egypt because the Anashim are dead. Who's he saying is dead? Datan and Aviram. By the way, they're not dead. But what he said is they've become impoverished. And the Talmud says once you become impoverished, like saying you're dead is like it's the opposite of a euphemism. Doesn't make it sound good, like a pejorative, I guess. I don't know if that's, I have to Google that. Look on the sheet, the Talmud says it. Don't take my word for it, it's right in the Talmud. The first source on the sheet is Bavli, the tractate in Nadarim 64. The Gemara answers, they hold. These people who were seeking Moses' life, had they indeed died? But Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, wherever it is stated in the Torah, the term striving, meaning nitzim, remember nitzim? In reference to the men who slandered Moses, or standing, in reference to those who complained against Moses and Aaron, they are none other than Datan and Aviram. Okay, now if you come down to one more midrash, the third source on the sheet, what is standing? Nitzavim. Our rabbis of blessed memory say, Datan and Aviram were with them. As it is written in their regard, they emerged standing. Okay, actually I don't want to get to that yet. So, Datan and Aviram don't die. But I want to just point out who they are in Exodus. In Exodus, they are the two guys who tell Pharaoh that Moses killed the Egyptian. And they're so important that Moses is so afraid that he leaves. And the Midrash just told us that they're so scary, these two people, whoever they are, that Moses won't come back until he knows that they're neutralized in some way. And how does he know that? God tells them, God assures them, don't worry, it's as if they're dead, they're not going to bother you. But there are these two people that bookend his coming and going to Egypt that are very interesting. And if you say, okay, is that the end of the story? Well, they appear multiple more times in the Torah. Okay. Harvey, I work alone. All right. All right. All right. Now, the most famous scene of Korah, of Datan and Aviram, is Numbers 16:1. Numbers 16:1. By the way, we haven't seen their name yet. We don't know that they're Datan and Aviram in the Torah. We only know that from the Talmud and the Midrash. But if you look, you don't have to skip to Numbers 16:1. Only one of you needs to skip to Numbers 16:1. But anyone have it? 11:27. Perfect. So now what we're going to see, by the way, who was Korach? Korach was the guy in the wilderness in the book of Numbers who challenges Moses. Why does he challenge Moses? Because Moses says to Aaron, you're the high priest. And Korach says, why does your family get to be in charge of everything? Why does your brother get to be the high priest? Maybe I should be the high priest. Because I'm also a Levite. A Levite. But you're keeping all of the power in your family. I'm a Levite too. I come from the special tribe of Levi. Why shouldn't I be in charge? And Korach, and God gets very mad at Korach. A big pit opens up and swallows him, and all the people followed him, and they die. And that gives people an indication that God wasn't with them. All right. Okay. Now, the Torah portion is called Korach, and we always think about Korach, but we don't always think about who his partners were. So let's look now at verse 1 of Numbers 16. Richard, do you have it?
Now Korah, son of Isar, son of Koha, son of Levi, betook himself, along with Dothan and Abiram, son of Eliah, and On, son of Pelech. These are quite some names.
Yeah.
Descendants of Reuben.
Right. So, Korach is from what tribe? And why is Korach angry? Because the Levites are supposed to be rewarded, and he says, I'm a Levite too. I should have power. So Datan and Aviram latch on to him and say, you think you should have power? We should have power. Why should we have power? Who are they? From the tribe of Reuben. You see all these crazy names you see at the end of verse 1, they're from the tribe of Reuben. Well, what's the big deal with Reuben? He's the firstborn. So Datan and Aviram say, hey, why are you taking power? We should be in power. And now we understand the grudge. Because Datan and Aviram say to Moses, why do you get to live in the palace? We should be living in the palace. And it wasn't that Moses was afraid that he killed an Egyptian because the Egyptians would find out. Egyptians couldn't care less. They killed people all the time. The Jews found out. And what was Moses afraid? That the Jews would say to him, who do you think you are to live in the palace? You're not even from the leading tribe, and the Levites hadn't even earned to be rewarded yet. So he's afraid that the Jews are going to turn on him. and that if all of the Jews came to Pharaoh, Pharaoh would kick him out of the palace, and his position would be in jeopardy. So that's who he's afraid of. And that's why he doesn't want to go back if Datan and Aviram are still rallying the people against him. But God says, don't worry about that. However, later on, when someone else says, let's rally against Moses, Datan and Aviram are the first two people to say, we're with you. Because we should be the ones who are in power, because we're the leaders of the tribe of Reuben, which is the firstborn tribe. Okay, so all that starts to come together now. But now the Midrash says there are some other places where we see these guys. And I want to show it to you. So, if you'll look with me now, where do I want to show you? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I have it in... Okay, so the first place I want to look at is Numbers 14, verse 4. You can find Numbers 14, verse 4. $11:10? Okay. So, Colleen, do you have it?
Yeah. And they said to one another, let us head back for Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembled congregation of the Israelites. And Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, of those who had scouted the land, rent their clothes and exhorted the whole Israelite community. The land that was traversed and scouted is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased...
Okay, so, sorry, that's all we need. Now, you see that there are some Jews who say to Moses, we're going to starve out here in the wilderness, let's go back to Egypt. But the way the Hebrew refers to them is Ish el Echav. And remember when Moses goes out and he sees the brethren who are fighting with each other, it's Echav, it's the brothers. And so look what the Midrash tells you. If you look to the second to last source on the page, who are the two people who say, let's go back to Egypt, it's not working out here? Who were they? Datan and Aviram. They're the ones who said, let us return to Egypt. And what I'm showing you is, and I can show you some more examples. Let me just show you one more. Back to Exodus. Usually we don't skip around this much. I know it's annoying, but in order to see it all, you have to see these verses. Unless you're an evangelical pastor and you know it by heart. Rabbis don't know it by heart, but the evangelical. Okay, Exodus 16:20. This is the last one until the next one. Actually, this is probably, almost the last one. Okay. Exodus 16:11, right? 16:20, whatever I said, I don't know. Okay, anyone have the page? 490? Okay, Annabella? 99. Annabella, do you have it? Yeah. Would you mind reading that verse?
16:20?
Yes.
But they did not obey Moses, and people left over from it until morning, and it became infested with worms, and it stank. And Moses became angry with them. Okay,
so again, you have the Hebrew word to describe the people, anashim. And let me see. If you look now, who were the people that lacked faith, that said, the manna is not going to come again tomorrow, so you need to because there was a law. You weren't allowed to take enough manna for the next day. You could only take what you would eat for today. And tomorrow, new manna would grow. Except on Shabbat, you'd take a double portion, which is why we have 2 challahs on Shabbat. This represents the double portion of manna that fell on Friday, so you'd have one for Saturday because you weren't allowed to go and pick your manna on Saturday. But any other day, you couldn't do that. But if you didn't believe that the manna was going to fall the next day, and so you took more for today and for tomorrow, then what you took for tomorrow would get worms. But the people who tried to get them to say it's not going to come tomorrow, so get as much as you can today. Look at the last source on the sheet. On the first page, Exodus 24:10. This is the Midrash. Men left from it. These were those who were among those who lacked faith. Who were they? Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said. Can you guess who they might say it might be? Datam and Aviram. Here men is stated, right? Meaning here the Hebrew is Anashim. And below men is stated, depart now from the tents of these wicked men. Just as the men stated below were Datan and Aviram, so too the men stated here were Datan and Aviram. And so what I'm telling you is anytime that there's something annoying that happens and someone who's attacking Moses, it's always these 2 guys, Datan and Aviram. Okay, now, what can we learn from that? That some people are annoying. No. What if I told you that the whole point of Datan and Aviram was to, where's my pen? Okay, let me just find it. I brought a lot of notes. Hang on. Yeah, here it is. Okay, what if I told you that Datan and Aviram are meant to model 2 men in Genesis? The 2 other guys in Genesis who are a similar model to Datan and Aviram, and more famous, way more famous. Who do you think it might be? Took me a while to figure this out too. Jacob and Esau. I was like, that was my first. Cain and Abel. Okay. Any more wrong answers? You got because you looked ahead. I don't count that. Yeah, you looked ahead on the sheet. Okay, so if you look with me back now to Genesis 34:25. Now, in order to be like Datan and Aviram, you would need a couple of things. You would need for them to be referred to as Anashim, or Achim, or have that word Nitzim. And if you had those words, then the Midrash could then draw a connection from Datan and Aviram back to 2 other people. So if you look now, Joe? 228 in Plow, chapter 34, verse 25. Chapter 34, verse 25.
On the 3rd day, when they were in pain, Simeon and Levi, 2 of Jacob's sons, brothers of Dinah, took each his sword and came upon a city unmolested and slew all the males.
Okay, so what happened was that Dinah was raped, and Shimon and Levi killed the man who raped her, and maybe bit of a little excessive, killed the whole town. Okay, so already there's something wrong with Shimon and Levi, because they killed the whole city of Shechem. By the way, it's in that exact spot where they killed all the men that later on they would sell Joseph into slavery, also from Shechem. You know what Shechem is today? Nablus. Not a lot of good things in that neighborhood, happening in that neighborhood. Okay, historically. It's also where the people, there are other revolts there in the Tanakh against God. So we have here that they're referred to as Achim. And if you would look in, you don't have to skip there if you don't want, but just to prove to you, in Genesis 49:5, I'll just read it. Let me see if Genesis 49:5, at the end of Genesis, last week's Torah portion, when Jacob is blessing all of the tribes and all the sons for what the tribe's going to be, what he says to them is, Simon and Levi are a pair. Their weapons are tools of lawlessness. And there also, Jacob refers to them as Achim. Now, all the brothers are Achim. But why does he say that? Of course, we know they're Achim. He's talking to all 12 of them. But he says, you two were brothers. They're all brothers. And if you could say, well, they don't all have the same mother. Because there's Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. But Shimon and Levi have the same mother, Leah. But so do Judah and Reuben. Leah had 6 of them. So there were other tribes who came from Leah too. But he just says, you too, Achim. And we already have this model of Achim in the Torah, Datan and Aviram. And so what the Midrash says is, well, don't take my word for it. If you look at the Midrash Rashi quotes the Midrash on the back of the page, which is not, you shouldn't think that Ken just, pieced this together himself. He looked ahead, but that's brilliant even in and of itself. Okay, Shelley, would you mind reading the Rashi there, Genesis 49:5?
Simeon and Levi were brethren in the plot against Shechem and against Joseph. Scripture states, and they said one to another, literally one to his brother, come now therefore and let us slay him. Now, who were these? Should you say Reuben or Judah was one of them? But they were not consenting parties to slaying him. Should you say they were the sons of handmaids? Dan, Naphtali, Gad, or Asher? Their hatred of Joseph was not so perfect a hatred that they would wish to kill him. For it is said, whilst a lad he used to be with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, etc.
Right. So here you have Simon and Levi. Reuben's the firstborn. Simon and Levi are the second and thirdborn. Joseph's much later. All right. And they don't like Joseph. They're the ones who were involved in selling him into slavery. I mean, they were the cheerleaders for it. They were the impetus for it to happen. And so the reason why is because they say Joseph is the favorite. What about us? We're the second and third born. Now, Reuben's been disqualified because he had an illicit relationship. So now that Reuben's disqualified, it should be us. We should be the ones who are in charge. And we're not. Joseph is. And that's the problem. That's the problem with Simon and Levi, and caused so much trouble. Later comes another couple, Datan and Aviram, who also cause a lot of trouble. And again, for the same reason. Because they said, we're from the first tribe. And even though our father did something, we're next generations, we didn't commit that sin, but we're from the main tribe, we should be in charge. And for the same reason, they're causing trouble. And so what you continue to see from Genesis and then into Exodus are these people who think that they deserve power just because of their name recognition. And not that ever happens anymore. But they continue to cause trouble. And Datan and Aviram, when there's a problem with the manna, it's them. When there's no food and we want to go back to Egypt, it's them. When Korach is, every time that Moses has a problem, there it is, Datan and Aviram. Okay, now ultimately when the pit opens up and swallows Korach, Datan and Aviram get swallowed up too, and they die, and that's the end of this problem. So now look what we've done. We had these minor characters that we didn't even know their name in Genesis. By using the Midrash, we were able to put the clues together and piece it together to figure out that these same two people who are going to complain for the rest of Moses' career until they're, buried with the rebellion of Korach, that these two people are Datan and Aviram. And they were so annoying to Moses that he had to leave Egypt because of them and wouldn't come back until he realized they were neutralized. But then they stuck around and continued to annoy him. That's Datan and Aviram. So we put that together. Then what what Rashi does for us is shows us the Midrash to say, well, there are two people like we've seen this before. These are modeled after Shimon and Levi that we met in the book of Genesis, who also have this very similar grudge to Datan and Aviram, and that is that they think that they should be in power, and they have no tolerance for the people ahead of them that God has chosen to be ahead of them. They don't think that you should be in power because you're deserving of it and God put you there, but rather just because of your lineage, you should be in power. All that, I could have just told you those last 5 sentences. We could have skipped 50. We could have skipped 50 minutes and had time for your questions that took us in 500 different directions. So we just did it that way instead. But so now the question is this. Who cares? Like, why do we need this? What do we learn the difference between Shimon and Levi and Datan and Aviram? Well, Shimon and Levi end up good. I mean, Shimon has some problems, and ultimately later on is one of the 10 lost tribes, but sort of is spread out to a certain extent amongst the Levites. And the Levites are spread out amongst all of the Jewish people as leaders. And they survive to this day. They're one of the 3 tribes that survive. Right? Remember, there are 10 lost tribes, but they're really 13 tribes because Joseph split up into 2, Ephraim and Manasseh. So the 3 tribes that remain are Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. But Benjamin got folded in, it was really small, got folded into Judah. And so if you're a Jew today, you're from Judah. Unless your last name starts with an L or a K or a C. And you're a Levite or a Leibowitz or a Levkov or a Levit or anything like that, and you're a Levite. Or you're a Kohen, and your last name is Cohen. I mean, you could have other last names, but the most common ones are Cohen and Levi. Or Khan or Kahan or anything, Cohen or anything like that. And there are other ones too that got changed all over time, but those are the only tribes that are left. You're either from Levi or you're from Judah. That's it. So why then, if Shimon and if Datan and Aviram are compared to Shimon and Levi, why is it that Datan and Aviram are considered villains who get swallowed up by the earth and are gone, and Levi becomes a hero? And to this day, the Levites are the heroes of the Jewish people. What's the difference between the two couple?
They repented. They asked for forgiveness.
That's it. That's it. They learned from their mistakes, and they changed their ways. And so Datan and Aviram, they did something wrong, and they continued to do it wrong, and they continued to do it wrong, and they continued to do it wrong. And Levi, when it came time for the golden calf, were the only tribe that didn't participate. And when it came time for the sin of the spies, and all of the spies said, we're going to go into the land of Israel, or we can't conquer it, there was only one tribe that didn't follow their advice and didn't commit that sin. And that's the reason, because they didn't commit those 2 sins, that's the reason that God appointed Levites to be the partners of the Kohens and gave the Levites special rights. Whereas Reuben, the firstborn from who Datan and Aviram came from, they're gone. And so the idea is that we all are going to have these challenges, but there's a choice you can make. But I think there's another idea, so that's what the Midrash is trying to show you. The Midrash is trying to show you that there's two different types of people, and that you should be more like Shimon and Levi than Datan and Aviram, plain and simple. But I got one more piece out of this that I wanted to share with you to conclude. During the hardest time that I had here at Temple Beth Am, by far, was COVID. COVID was unbelievably challenging. And if you ever try to raise a lot of money, I wouldn't recommend, try not to do it during a global pandemic. If you can. If you can. It's not so easy. And a lot of times, I would be in my office and, the temple was fine. The temple was easy. The school was a nightmare, especially with the masks. Because we would have these Zoom meetings with the leading infectious disease doctors in the world. And they would tell us, put on masks. And then I'd get a phone call from a parent, you can't wear masks. They're not good for the kids. What do you do for a living? Oh, yeah, I own like a real estate company. You're right. I think we should go with you. All of a sudden, everyone's an infectious disease expert. Not only that, everyone became an infectious disease expert who knew that the real infectious disease experts were a bunch of idiots. So I get these calls every day. Rabbi, take the masks off. You're gonna ruin all our kids' speech. They're all gonna have speech impediments. And I told them, Moses had a speech impediment. You could. What's the problem? That's like that would be a good thing. Look how well he did. Yeah. And so I'd say, Rabbi, you're an idiot. You're going to get all these kids killed. And I would say, I know, I agree with you. Can I have $100,000? I said, oh, sure. I said, sure, no problem. They said, Rabbi, you're an idiot. You're going to get all these kids killed. And I said, I agree with you. Can I have $100,000? No problem. And then I'd hang up the phone and I'd say, that guy just gave $100,000 to an idiot. What an idiot. That was like every day. I was really frustrated at that point. And one day I went over to meet with my friend Rabbi Harlig, and we studied Talmud together. I went over to meet with him, and I was really, really frustrated and just sick of COVID. And I said to him, I got the absolute job that I wanted. I mean, there's nowhere that I'd rather be. The largest synagogue in the best city with the best weather and the most Jews and the most Zionism, and that's what I have. And I hate it. And he said to me, that was just this one moment because I was really angry about COVID. He said to me, that's the Yetzer Hara. You know what the Yetzer Hara is? The Yetzer Hara is the evil inclination. And I said, what do you mean? Because I always thought the evil inclination was you had one angel on one side and the devil on the other side, and it tried to tell you, one tried to tell you to come in, go to Torah study, go play golf, go to Torah study, sleep in. I won't get into the football. That's what I thought the Yetzer Hara was, and Rabbi Harlik said to me, no, there are many more aspects of it. The Yetzer Hara is what messes with you at certain points in your life. And one of the times that it messes with you is when you've achieved your goal. Once you've achieved your goal and you are where you want to be, it tries to mess with you, to knock you off and to make it hard for you. So Rabbi Harlik said to me, so leave. Go to another temple. Go to, Tulsa. Go to wherever you want to go. But you know what? They have COVID in Tulsa. and they have annoying congregants and parents in Tulsa. And whatever it is that's annoying you here, once you get to where you want to be somewhere else, that same issue is going to be right there. So how does Rabbi Harlig know that better than I did? Because he knew what was the point of the Midrash about Datan and Aviram. Datan and Aviram to Moses are, wherever you go, that challenge is still going to be there. Wherever you end up in life, you're still going to have to deal with that issue. And you can run away from the issue, but it will follow you. You can say, I don't want to do this job in Temple Beth Am in Miami. Great, go to Boca. You think it's going to be 100 times worse. You don't like it here? Go to. No, Boca's they're better catering. Retired. All right, but go wherever the heck you want. That issue is still going to nag at you. And that's called the Yetzer Hara. So what happened to Moses? God said to Moses, the thing that you're afraid of, by the way, God said to Moses, you never should have left Egypt in the first place. You should have stayed there and fight for your people. But you left because that thing that was bothering you, you couldn't handle it. You went to Boca, you went to Tulsa, you went to wherever, you couldn't handle it. So God found Moses, gave him another chance and said, go back. And Moses said, I can't go back. Datan and Aviram, that thing that annoys me, they're still there. And God said to Moses, you're strong enough now to overcome that Yetzer Hara. You're strong enough to go back. So Moses goes back. He sees Datan and Aviram, and it doesn't get in his way of accomplishing his goal. And then he goes out, and there they are again. Whenever there's a problem, there they are again. There's no food. The manna's not going to come back tomorrow. Korach, I'm the one who should. And Moses says, I know you're still here, and you're still annoying me. But you're never going to get the best of me. And we all have those things that annoy us, and you can run away from them, or you can try to overcome them. That's Datan and Aviram. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. How you doing? Marsha, hanging in there? About the same? Yeah, I talked to him. He's doing a lot better. They had to put him on dialysis, but he's off it. He's going to be off it. He's going to be okay. I think he's still in the hospital. He may be home. Last I heard. He wasn't in. No. He was in the hospital for a long time. He's probably still in there, but he's going to be okay. South Miami. But he's going to be all right. Thank you. I said, hey, I work alone. I always use that term. No, you were right. Wow. Mazel tov. That's okay. Not bad. Mazel tov. I'm glad to share the weekend today. Okay. Thank you.
check, check. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check.